Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. It's been quite a few weeks since we came back, but this time we're going to give you guys a traditional news analysis, previews and all that stuff. Pretty much the original shows that we did in the past, but we haven't given you in a while. And Mike is back once again. Welcome back to the show, Mike. Glad you can make it this time.
Thank you for having me, Danny.
You could pop in anytime you want, but obviously you will. But let's just jump right into it. That's what everybody wants to hear already. We wanted to talk about the pound for pound rankings. Obviously we were talking about Crawford and Canelo when they fought. Pound for pound. We've talked about pound for pound quite a bit here on the episodes over the last several years. Some people, obviously, a lot of people say that Crawford should be number one. What's your take on the pound for pound ranking after Crawford getting that victory over Canelo Alvarez?
I would still say, for regular listeners of the show, they know that I'm a resume guy. So I would still say Crawford needs to get a few more names on that ledger, because before that, I think probably his best win was either Victor Postal or Ricky Burns. He has wins over Kell Brook, Amir Khan, but those two literally fought each other, then retired straight after. So that's how they had one foot out the door, essentially. So, it's like I saw that Andre Ward interview that he did where he was talking about people are being quiet now. But I don't think people ever said Crawford was no good. People just said that his resume needed more people in it. But he did some show when he was going on about that, people are quiet now. Dude, that wasn't the case. People just said that, he hadn't fought a lot of the fighters at 147, and that really wasn't his fault either, because of, he was at top rank and everybody else literally was across the street at PBC, and PBC wouldn't share their toys. So that really wasn't Crawford's fault. But I still would say, me personally, I'd like to see him get a couple more big wins on his ledger before he walks away into retirement.
I think it's more to that, like you mentioned, PBC blocked him out for all these years until they just couldn't anymore. Okay, Sean Porter go and fight him. And then obviously he got Spence. That was a big money fight, and he dominated Spence. But I think it's more that people could recognize that Crawford is talented. I don't want to say was talented, because he obviously can still fight. They recognize his talent. And I think they looked at it more okay, as long as he gets a shot at these PBC guys who had all the welterweights, all the prominent welterweights, he would be favored to win, and it would definitely shoot him up to the top of the pound for pound rankings. I don't think reasonable fans of the sport dispute that. I think that if PBC was able, like you said, to share their toys and had their fighters fight him over the last several years, Thurman, Danny Garcia, those guys. Who else is there? Ugas? Did he fight Ugas? He didn't, right?
No, I don't think he really got the chance to fight any of them, apart from, like you said, Sean Porter and Errol Spence towards the end, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I know there's other PBC guys in there that I think were PBC associated that he fought, but when we say PBC guys, we were talking about the prominent money makers. So I don't think anybody's disputing that if PBC would have been able to make those fights, or was willing to make those fights, and Crawford, agreed to them, Crawford and Top Rank agreed to them, I think people are kind of indicating that Crawford would have came out as the victor in those fights. So that kind of determines his spot in the pound for pound rankings. Because I think you're right. I think we've been talking about this for years, saying that we know Crawford's talented, but like I don't think we ever agreed that he was number one. Even though, I mean, it's not that I don't necessarily like. I don't disagree if people look at it like, oh, Crawford's number one in my pound for pound rankings. Oh, okay. I mean, I understand why, but I don't think so. I mean, that's like you said, we were looking at resume, but you don't think even after he moves up 2-3 weight classes and beats Canelo Alvarez, you don't think that gives him the number one spot in your mind?
I would say he's maybe third. I still think Usyk maybe takes it because Usyk like literally went to everyone's backyard, fought all the people in the Super Series, then stepped up to heavyweight, and that old age of, there's weight classes for a reason. There's weight classes for a reason. He stepped up, defeated Joshua, defeated Fury.
Yeah.
And he's just gone on a long tear. Like he was literally paying like pound for pound in real life. You know what I mean? He was substantially smaller than these guys and was actually stepping up and beating them. So I think it's close though. Close between like him, Inoue, and Terence Crawford. Depending on the day and stuff like that. Like I think that just for me, Crawford needs a few more big wins. Just those defining wins. Because if you remember the pre-show, the pre-fight, when they did an interview with Canelo and Crawford, Canelo even said that to him, and all Crawford said was, "What, you don't rate Postel?" And I'm thinking that's the only name he said. Like if he had a huge resume of wins, he would have said, "Well, what about Danny Garcia? What about Keith Thurman? What about Postel? What about this guy? What about this guy?" He gave one name. All he said was Postel.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. I don't know. It's tough because like people are going to listen to this or are listening to us and probably upset. Like, oh, these guys are just haters. Like, well, no, if you go back and listen to our past episodes, like we said, like we've been very consistent. Like we're fans of Crawford. Like we think he's an excellent fighter. Like, I mean, I said it. I don't know if you agree with me, but I said like, look, if somebody wants to rate him number one, it's not that I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I get it, but I mean, you've heard me in the past say like I've been a big Inoue guy. I mean, focusing on Inoue, how many weight classes has he essentially conquered? Like, how many has he went through?
I think he's won at least world titles in 4, but he's been like undisputed in only 1 or 2? It's a good question.
I just feel like how much, there's these, we call them like the sexy weight classes, heavyweight, middleweight, welterweight. I mean, I get it.
4 weight classes and undisputed in 2 weight classes in the 4 belt era. Okay.
So Crawford's won titles at 140, 147. Did he win one at 154, or was that just a fight with
He beat Madrimov for like a WBA belt.
Yeah. So it was some type of title, right? And then he wins at 168. I mean, it's going back to what I was saying right now a second ago. In a way, because he also fights in Japan, doesn't get the marketability and the eyeballs over here in the U.S. Same thing with Usyk. Usyk, a big chunk of his career, primarily his career, has been overseas. So his fights are on like in the middle of the day. He doesn't get the American media over here, the marketing behind him, or they don't post him too much. Like I guess it's not their fault. They're still making a ton of money, but Crawford is an American and he's an excellent fighter. Omaha, Nebraska. So how much do you think, if at all any, does Crawford benefit from people giving him the top of the pound for pound list because he's an American, because he was on ESPN Top Rank for a bunch of years, like he gets the what's the word I'm looking for?
The rub?
Yeah, the rub from, I guess, the U.S. media.
Yeah. No, 100%, because, someone like Inoue and like Lomachenko, when he first hit the scene, they were like the indie type of like super hardcore boxing fan type of people, right? They're the only people that really know about them. And I think that for Inoue, like, you have to be a geek like us and wake up at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to watch a fight on ESPN Plus live from Japan. So yeah, I'm assuming like a huge percentage of the boxing fans who do the pound for pound list. Like, I know if you log on to BoxRec, you can do like the people's version. So like the fans can vote on who they have. And I think currently they have Crawford on there. So yeah, I would agree with that. Like your Usyks and your Inoues don't get the same type of attention just because they're not known. Usyk maybe more so now because of the heavyweight fights and, the age-old saying of if the heavyweight division's doing well, boxing's doing well. So that's kind of like the giants, isn't it? Everyone watches the giants even if they don't know who they are. So he may be better known than Inoue, even though Inoue's, amazing, 87% knockout ratio or something. He's got something ridiculous. So, yeah, I would agree with that statement that you said.
Yeah, I think it's just like the sexiness of the weight class, right. And that's how people look at it. I mean, how often have we done episodes in the past here where right after a fight with a fighter who's, popular, who's, a great fighter, whether it's a Canelo, Crawford, Usyk, Inoue, when they get a win, you go and you like check the pulse of the boxing community and they're like, oh my God, he's pound for pound, it's like kind of like a recency bias thing, right? Like,
yeah, 100%.
So who's your number one then? Usyk?
Yeah, if I'm going to stick to what I said earlier about, having a good ledger, having a good resume. Yeah. Even though he's not fought recently, that recency bias, like you said, I think I would still go with Usyk 1, and then you could probably switch between Inoue and Crawford 2 or 3, depending on what time of day you ask me.
No, yeah, and people, I mean, people who are listening to this are probably hardcore fans, obviously, but Inoue fought that same weekend, and he won.
A tough opponent.
Yeah. So he won. It wasn't actually a stoppage or a knockout. It was actually a decision, which is very surprising. Because that doesn't happen in his bouts. But yeah, you said earlier, I wanted to go back to it. You said if Crawford, the resume, if he can get like some more significant wins under his belt, what would convince you? Like if he has one more fight after this, like is there one opponent like, oh, you know what, I have to give it to him? Like undisputed number one. Because I mean, like, who else could he really fight?
Like, what weight? Are we looking at anything from 147, 154?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, right?
He's assuming he'd go back down there, would you? I think the 168 was just a one-off.
Unless he goes to 160.
Yeah, I mean, they said in the pre-shows and stuff that he walks around at like 180. So he could probably fight at like a 160 or 154 and still be,
if he gets if he gets a world title at 160, does that convince you?
I mean, obviously it depends on who he beats, right? Like if he goes back down and fights someone like, I think he would quite easily beat someone like a Carlos Adames.
That'd be a decent fight, though. I mean, I think Crawford would be the favorite, but Adames can fight.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look who. Honestly, there was.
Because I mean, it's hard. Like he's already 38.
Yeah, because if you look at the championship, the holders at like middleweight and super welterweight, there's not names that jump out. There's not like another Canelo. There's not someone that's kind of like mopped up that division where if you turn around and said, "Hey, Danny, if Crawford beats him, he's amazing." Like a better Biev. If you fought like a better Biev or a Bivol or something like that, like if we had an equivalent at 160, you'd be like, okay, yeah, he's the best of generation. There isn't really someone walking around like that. At the minute, if he goes back down to welterweight and fights someone like a Jaron Ennis or I know that Ennis is looking at moving up to 154. That'd be a good matchup, I think. Even if you beat someone like a Virgil Ortiz, it's still a very good victory, but I wouldn't say that's a career-defining. I would think that he would need like another one or two. Say if he came back down to 147 or 154.
I think he goes 154, if anything. Ennis?
Yeah, I don't even think he really needs a belt on it, does it? The two really good fighters.
Yeah.
Two really good fighters. Like Ennis would be a great victory. Zanabek, he's been stupidly avoided.
Yeah.
And he's a really good fighter. Someone like him, I think, would be good. I think that would be a better victory than beating like a Calas or Dames.
Yeah.
Two victories like that, I think, with two. They're not massive household names like we were talking about earlier, with like your Keith Thurmans and your Danny Garcias and those type of guys. But unfortunately, that was just wrong time, wrong promotion, like we said. So I think those names would be good, like a Virgil Ortiz, because he's going to be a full champion eventually. I know he's got a WBC interim, I think it is at the minute. And then like Zanabek, no one wants to fight him because he's not a big money guy, but he's a great fighter.
I have a theory. You tell me if you would agree with this or not. If Bivol, especially following his Canelo win, was able to secure big fights against big name opponents, obviously he got the better BF rematch, or they fought twice or whatever it was. But before that, especially after the Canelo fight, if he was just able to secure big money fights with big opponents, because I think he said he possibly could make 160 or at least maybe 165. But let's just say he was able to get some big fights at a catch weight between 160 and 168, and then also fight other guys at 168. Essentially that he wasn't avoided. I think that Bivol, if he had the opportunities, especially after the Canelo win, Bivol would have had a strong case at being pound for pound number one.
Yeah. Just the same thing you said earlier. He just doesn't have that fan base because he's not Mexican, American, or British. And the fact he's very quiet.
Yeah.
Just his interviews, he just answers the question. He's not funny. He's not a villain. He doesn't have like a WWE style characteristic where you either love him or you hate him because he's chosen to be, a goodie or a baddie. So it's unfortunately that's kind of the way boxing's going, right? You need that type of.
I mean, he never really had like a big. I mean, he was associated with big promoters, but he just never really had like the backing. Like, what do you think of the difference between him and like a Lomachenko is? They're both from like the similar areas, Eastern Europe. But Lomachenko, not only was he a great fighter, but he had some popularity.
I think just his 396-1 amateur career is just outrageous. And then his style of, boxing, skipping to the side, and then kind of giving you that punch from the side, and then going on that run of going pro, fighting for like a WBO international, which got him ranked top 15. Second fight was a world title fight. Okay, he lost. But then he wins it in the third. And then he went on that run where he wasn't knocking people out. They were quitting. Right. And that was just so unusual. And he was just like, I think didn't he win his third fight? Was like Gary Russell Jr.
Yeah.
For like the world championship. And like just went on this crazy run of people who at the time were like killers. And some of them we didn't see for like a long time afterwards.
Yeah. I think it also helped being on ESPN for all those years with Top Rank.
Yeah, then his story of like his dad like taking him to boxing, telling him he has to go away, do like Ukrainian dance for a while to get his feet really good, and then comes back to boxing, and having his dad as his coach, like just that whole kind of like mad story was kind of sold him, I think, to the fans. Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. So there's no confusion as to at least to the top three. Usyk, Crawford, in a way. Yeah, I would agree with that. So if somebody had Crawford at number one, they were talking to you, they're like, hey, you know what? No, I disagree with you. I have Crawford at number one. Would you accept that, or would you be like, no, like
would you try to convince them like, no, this is why Crawford should be number one?
I mean, he's like second or third on mine, so I wouldn't be outraged by it. It's not like he's come out with something ludicrous, but just to me, I think it's you need a little bit more resume because you can't. For me, it's not. You can't have someone there based on potential. Like you need because sometimes that's wrong. Like say if obviously Crawford's 38 years old, so he's not, a prospect. But say if you say like early in his career, like, oh, I'm going to put Shakur Stevenson as number one. You're like, but he hasn't achieved that yet. You're like, yeah, but look how talented he's going to be. You're like, but is he? Like how many times have we said that about certain fighters? Like, look at Matchroom put stock behind like Mark Castro. Top rank put the stock behind Gabriel Flores.
Yeah,
they've amounted to nothing. And we called it on the show here. Like I said about both of them, they weren't going to make it, and they didn't.
Yeah. I think Castro's still lingering, so he might have
the Canelo fight. He used to be on all the Canelo undercards. Remember?
Well, he was also on those cards because he was associated with Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn's not involved. So, that partnership obviously was lucrative for him. But Gabriel Flores, I think wasn't he just signed by somebody or he fought? I don't know, but Castro I think is still within the mix. But I think just the hype. I'll never forget it. Remember when we went to the Chavez Jacobs fight in Phoenix?
Yeah.
Eddie Hearn met with Mark Castro in the lobby of the hotel the next morning. Because remember that's when we got Eddie Hearn during the interview. We had asked him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, just give me some time." And he was meeting with Castro and I think Castro's dad in the restaurant of the hotel lobby. And then we waited, and Eddie Hearn came and gave us an interview for probably an hour.
Yeah, as well.
So, and then we asked him about it, and he talked about it. Yeah, we met with him, trying to sign him, and it ended up working out. I think a couple weeks later, I don't even know how much after, but they announced the signing. Staying on the Canelo Crawford event, with Canelo's loss to Crawford, is Canelo still the cash cow, or is Crawford now the cash cow, or who's the next guy to bring in the money? I think Canelo still has the star power. I think he does. Yeah. I don't think he just, like we talked about fan bases. Mexican fans, they're behind him. He has a solidified fan base. So he still brings in money. But did Crawford get that rub? What do you think?
A tiny bit. I mean, I don't think he's, like you said, I think a lot of the fans are going to be loyal. I think a lot of the Mexican fans will follow Canelo until he retires. But it's kind of, we can see, that he's closer to retirement than he is, closer to the peak of his career. And it's just interesting to be like, who's going to be that next guy? You had Oscar De La Hoya, and then came Pacquiao and Mayweather, both sold a lot. And then we had probably just a little bit of a gap, and then Canelo, and then I couldn't think who's going to be the next big one. There isn't really, unless someone appears in the next couple of years, who's going to be the next guy to take that over.
That's the crazy thing about it is that it's not looking at the landscape. They're really there was people who we thought had potential. I think
Teofimo Lopez, I thought was the next one.
Well, it wasn't even him. It was also Ryan Garcia. Even though we kind of knew the talent, okay, eventually he's going to get caught with a shot. But we thought, okay, well, he's when he beat Luke Campbell when he was still training with Eddie Reynoso and the Canelo camp. I think when we talked about it in the episodes after that, I think I remember talking about it hey, you know what? That was a big win for him. That was big for his confidence. And he knocked him out with a body shot. I thought, okay, maybe this is a turnaround for him. I was sometimes that one win is gives you all that confidence. And then, sometime after there was drama with Canelo and the camp, and he left Eddie Reynoso, and then he loses to Tank Davis, and then he loses to Rolly Romero recently. And I mean, Obviously, hasn't worked out yet. He's still young, but I think you're right. I think for the longest time, you could always look at a sport, especially boxing, and be like, okay, there's the next guy. There's your next star that's going to control the money. Like, to be the guy, like, hey, if I fight that guy, like, that's life-changing money. And there's really nobody there right now. People could say, like, oh, it's Crawford. He's 38. I mean,
doesn't sound anything like Canelo.
I wouldn't be surprised if he just retires, and he deserves to if he wants to. But I mean,
if you look at it, like in all three areas, like the three major boxing, like Canelo from Mexico, the US doesn't really got like any major stars. Maybe like Davis and Ryan are the two biggest, and in the UK we're losing AJ and Fury.
Yeah,
that's all of the biggest pay-per-view sellers, all close to retirement. And I honestly can't think of anyone who sells anything like that that's going to replace him.
Yeah. I mean, and then the TV partnerships, they're not really there. The zone really hasn't really hit how they wanted it to since it began, like in 2018, I think. They wanted to be like an ESPN and take like a market share of the viewers, but it really hasn't hit how they wanted to. So, that is crazy to look at, though. To look at the landscape and you're just like, there's nobody there right now. There's nobody there.
Because that Mexican market, you would have thought, what, Munguia? But then he's faced Canelo and.
Yeah, no. I mean, Munguia has a fan base, but like we're talking about like the superstar, and there's nobody there. There's nobody there. That's crazy to see, man. That's crazy to see.
Here's a question for you. Do you have to be from Mexico, like Canelo, to get that type of fan base? Or do you think the country of Mexico would get behind a Mexican-American like they do Canelo?
I think if you're from Mexico and it's easier, especially if you can fight. I mean, look at Chavez, then obviously look at Canelo, and even if you want to go look at essentially a smaller scale, look at Barrera, Morales, Juan Manuel Marquez. Those guys had fan bases, and in turn, like they had a lot of Mexican fans from the country of Mexico. But then there's a lot of Mexicans and Mexican Americans in the U.S., especially in California, Arizona, Texas, the southern states. And a lot of those people, first generation people here in the United States, or they still have family in Mexico and they go and visit. So there's still that connection that they feel. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is great. Like, so I think if you're from Mexico and you could fight and you have that Mexican style, what they call it, then yeah, I think it's a little bit easier for you to maybe build that fan base. But it's not to say that you can't. I mean, look at De La Hoya. When De La Hoya was coming up and he fought Chavez, like there was a lot of Mexican fans who like didn't like De La Hoya because like, oh, you're not a real Mexican, you're from the United States, or you're Mexican American, because they were loyal to Chavez because Chavez was like the childhood for them. Like, oh, he's our guy. But then De La Hoya beats him. I think they fought twice and he beat him twice. The first fight, like Chavez was cut or they stopped the fight, and I think the second fight De La Hoya beat him. But then in the subsequent years after that fight, De La Hoya I think he gained the trust of the Mexican fan base because he fought everybody and he went out there and like put it all on the line. So it's not that it can't happen. You just have to show, just like anything, right? You have to show that you're dedicated and you're showing that you have some type of grit and some type of heart. I mean, it's tough, man. Like, the good thing for De La Hoya is like, he was marketable. Like he was a good looking guy. He could speak Spanish and English. Like he was bilingual. So he was a multifaceted, superstar. So he can go and do interviews in Spanish. He can do interviews in English. Like that's great. That's great from a marketability standpoint. Whereas if you look at, you touched on Ryan Garcia earlier, and he doesn't speak Spanish. He knows English, but he's also Mexican. He has some connection there, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's tough. It's tough because, like, I mean, I don't even know who's out there right now who could take. Like I told you right before I came on air, he's not Mexican, but he's Puerto Rican. But Xander Zayas, I think I saw some reports that he signed something with Bad Bunny, or Bad Bunny is associated with some athletic promotional outfit or something like that. And that company that Bad Bunny, the singer, is associated with, signed Xander Zayas. I mean, they're both Puerto Rican, so you could see the connection. I mean, if you really kind of want to look past that partnership, or not look past it, but really analyze that and look at the potential of that partnership, if Xander Zayas can be something of a decent talent and kind of build his profile and get the rub from somebody as globally recognized as the singer Bad Bunny, there's a chance there. There's a chance there. So, and Xander Zayas, I think, speaks English and Spanish. I think he does. So, I mean, yeah, it just, there's always that one fight that kind of passes the torch, right? Or kind of.
Yeah. It's how they try to set it up, isn't it, normally?
Yeah. I mean, talk about Pacquiao. Pacquiao fought Marquez. He fought Barrera, Morales. But it also helped because him and Mayweather kind of were parallel during their careers. During like the prime of their careers, they were parallel together. So everybody kind of associated them with each other. So I think Mayweather was obviously the more famous guy, but because Pacquiao was also good in the same weight class or in similar weight classes, he got the rub from being associated with Mayweather. So, and then Canelo obviously got the rub from just having high profile fights. He fought Mosley, fought Cotto, obviously fought Mayweather, Triple G, He was lucky because he fought across different generations. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, going back to the original question, I don't know. We don't know who the next star is. And it sucks to say that, but we don't know.
It should really come out of that group of Haney, Ryan,
you would think.
But none of them have really climbed to that next echelon for whatever reason.
How much do you think it has to do with pay? When I say, good for them that they've made this amount of money in the fights, that they've been paying millions. Good for them. I mean, if I think we were in that situation, we'd be like, yeah, I'll take it too. But there's obviously fighters, not even just fighters in boxing, but athletes in general, but fighters where once you've had a fight or two or a couple that you've made life-changing money, the fight and the discipline in yourself as a fighter kind of dwindles down. So do you think it has anything to do with pay if you had to speculate?
Yeah, maybe like pay, or because if you look at like you said, like Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo, like
those guys are disciplined.
They're disciplined. They never left the gym, and like they always did really take like
even Mayweather,
the big challenges. Floyd Mayweather, and that's how they managed to get to where they are. Floyd did pick them towards the end, but
he went.
Canelo challenged most of the people I think we wanted him to.
Yeah.
Apart from obviously, I know people are going to show, well, what about David Benavidez? But dude, the guy's so much taller than him.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a chance that fight could still happen because I think they asked Canelo about it during fight week, and he didn't really shoot it down like he has in the past.
I think he'll do like a tour type thing. Like I think either his next fight or the one after that will be like in England against like Chris Eubank Jr. Just to get those final few paychecks.
Turning our sights to, or our topics to the UK, you talked about, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury are kind of, on the back nine, kind of also at the end of their careers, essentially. Fury has said multiple times he's retired, he's not retired. Is he coming back? Do you think he's coming back? I think AJ is going to fight again, but do you think Fury's coming back?
I mean, I'd be surprised if he didn't. I think he took that break now and said he was retired because I think he's doing like another documentary for Netflix. So I think that was why he took like an extended amount of time off. And then obviously, retiring and unretiring must add an extra zero to the paycheck or something because, Mayweather would do it and, Tyson Fury's done it and loads of other boxers have done it. So I think that's why. And why would you leave all that money on the table? He hasn't got an O to protect anymore. So why not just fight, Joshua 1 or 2 times, next summer and get paid a crazy amount of money, I'm sure, to do that. So if it doesn't happen next summer, then I don't think it will because he'd been out of the ring for, 2-3 years by then. So,
well, it's like we talked about earlier at the beginning of the episode, you mentioned like how Kell Brook and Amir Khan fought each other after they fought Crawford and then they retired. But that fight, even though it was like years later that we wanted to see it, that was still a pretty significant event and they still made some money. So
yeah,
like
we always crumble and buy it, don't we? We're always like, I don't want to see a washed up Khan and a washed up Kell Brook who'd both just been beaten by Crawford.
Yeah.
But we still pay. I mean, we always do. We're like, there's nothing else to watch that weekend. We may as well turn it on. So,
I mean, I think that that's kind of relatable to AJ and Tyson Fury, and I think AJ and Tyson Fury because they have the attractiveness of the heavyweight division, and they're both 6'7", 6'9", or whatever, like 300 pounds, 280 pounds, or whatever they are. That's the same thing as Kell Brook and Amir Khan, just on a bigger scale, and they're going to make more money.
Yeah, because there's always like I don't think you find it as much over here, but in the UK there's always like who's the best in Britain. So for us it's like, okay, we both know that AJ and Tyson Fury aren't the best in the world, but when they fight each other, who's the best in the UK?
I think that's a big deal. That's a big question that I think people will be like, oh, I'm intrigued by that. I want to see that.
Yeah. Is it the tall, more skillful boxing IQ guy, or is it the slightly shorter but still enormous, muscle-bound,
athlete?
Athlete, yeah. I guess an athlete that's a boxer. So it'll still sell. It'll still do great numbers because people will still buy it. And it's, especially if you know, like, hey, this could be the last time we're going to see him.
Yeah.
As well. So,
can they, if they make that fight, which I think they would, like maybe next year, can they sell out a football stadium in the UK?
Yeah. It's still sell out Wembley. Still do like 80 or 90,000 just because, like you touched on, like the British fans, the Mexican fans, they'll follow you, especially if you like, these are the 2 best heavyweights in Britain and it's close to their retirement fight. This is one of the last chances you're going to get to see them live before they walk off, hang up the gloves and disappear. Because, if they do it, I reckon they'll probably do it twice. They'll probably, sadly, do maybe one in Saudi and then the next one in the UK.
Yeah. It'd be fun if they did the first one in the UK and then the second one in Saudi.
Yeah, because you got that off chance of what happens if one just annihilates the other. And then they're like, okay, like I think I'm done. Like my reflexes just weren't there.
Yeah.
And then there's no rematch. And then we don't say they do the first one in Saudi and then there's no rematch. Then we never get to see it in the UK.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hope that the first one would be in the UK. This is kind of a side question, but do you think Canelo would do a UK fight before he retires?
Yeah, like I said before, I think either his next fight or the fight after, I think will be Chris Eubank Jr. fights Conor Benn in November. If Chris Eubank Jr. wins that again, I think his next fight will be Canelo.
In the UK or out here?
In the UK, yeah. I think Canelo, because he's getting to the back 9, like we said, I think he may just go and do a little fight here, a little fight there. Maybe the Saudis will entice him to go over there. Just kind of do the biggest fights for the largest money, and then he's done.
Could a Canelo Eubank fight fill up a football stadium over there?
Yeah, and then I think that's more Canelo because people have never seen him.
Yeah. Remember, like we talked about years ago when Lomachenko went to the UK?
That sold out before they announced the undercard.
Yeah, just based on Lomachenko as the only name.
Yeah.
But it's like we talked about, because people over there, British fans are very serious boxing fans, and they looked at it like, this is going to be the only time we're ever going to see this guy because he doesn't fight over here, and he's one of the best boxers on the planet. And I think you're right. I think with Canelo, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to be like, hey, this is probably going to be the only time he's ever going to come over here and fight.
Yeah.
And he would sell, he would sell out Wembley, you think?
Yeah. I think he's just that big a name, especially against someone like Eubank Jr. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of trash talk between them, and then, hey, here's your one and only chance to see one of the greatest fighters of our generation, the last 10 years at least.
Would a Crawford Eubank fight, or Crawford even Conor Benn fight, sell out Wembley or a football stadium over there?
Yeah, maybe not as fast as the Canelo though,
but it would.
I think because you got that. I mean, he's been to Scotland one time because he beat Ricky Burns for the world title in Scotland.
Right.
But obviously, he's not very few times he's going to go to the UK to fight. And he just beat Canelo, and obviously a lot of people are boxing fans in the UK. So yeah, I think that would probably still sell out. And then Chris Eubank Jr. is quite possibly the third biggest name in the UK.
Yeah,
because obviously you've got AJ Fury and then maybe Conor Benn or Chris Eubank Jr. as the third of popular.
Yeah,
so.
No, I can see that. I don't think we, because since you haven't done an episode in a while, so I haven't got your recent take on this. We've talked about it in the past, but not recently. Zuffa Boxing. What's your take on the whole situation now, as of today, at least?
It's going to be interesting. I think, I'm sure Dana White's going to pull his strings, and I'm sure he's going to get a very good TV deal somewhere. Now, is it going to be your old school TV type of deal, or is it going to be behind an app? Because with Top Rank not being on ESPN, and we don't know where Top Rank and Zuffa are going to land, this must be the first time in years or ever that there's going to be zero boxing on what we know as terrestrial or digital TV, which is crazy to think. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be more of your middle of the road type of fighters, because they say they've got 200 fighters signed. I don't think we've seen one household name announced that they've signed with Zuffa Boxing. So I think it's going to be a lot of prospects, a lot of B-side guys and stuff like that. And I'm sure he's going to do the usual contender type series, maybe even what was the one where they stay in the house? Is that Contender?
The UFC?
Yeah, where they used to do the UFC and they'd all stay in the house and then the winner goes on and fights. I used to watch it all the time.
I think it is a Contender, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so that I could see him doing something like that because that was so popular. Not that boxing's new, but he needs to try to sell these people to us, right? That's why you go and see them, because you get some type of connection with the fighter, and then you part money to buy a ticket to go and see them. Right. So I'm sure he's going to do something like that, because obviously that was what saved the UFC essentially. Dana White said that in several interviews, that they put all the money behind that series, and luckily reality TV show when they took off. So maybe he's going to do something like that. Because remember, what was the old one? Was that the Contender with Ishii Smith and all those guys? Peter Manfredo, Alfonso Gomez. Remember the boxing version?
The one that Sergio Mora won?
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Was that was popular? So maybe he brings something like that back.
Was that called the Contender?
I think it was. Ultimate Fighter. That's the UFC version.
That's the UFC
Ultimate
version.
Fighter is the UFC version, and the Contender was the boxing version.
Right.
It was in the brain somewhere.
Yeah, the Contender, and I was like, I think that is what it's called. But then, yeah. You start listing it. I was like, oh yeah, Sergio Mora.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
See, that was super popular. So maybe they bring something like that back to get as a connection with the fighters that he has with his brand, and then we're like, okay, like we like these guys, and then we kind of switch over because at the minute I think it's just going to be like another also run. I don't see it being like a Matchroom or Top Rank, maybe with their production, and maybe it's going to get pushed on us a lot more because Dana White has those connections with, the UFC, and he's managed to get stuff for Power Slap and all the other stuff that he does just because he's so powerful. But we go for fighters' names, right?
Well, I can tell you one guy who's definitely going to be associated with them is Callum Walsh.
And he didn't pull up any strings in his last fight. Yeah,
and I mean we were texting about it leading up to that fight, and obviously the day of the fight when he beat, he decisioned Fernando Vargas Jr. But if you look at the scorecards, you're like, oh yeah, it was a wide win. It actually wasn't. It was actually a very there wasn't a lot of big moments in the fight, but it was actually a lot more competitive than you thought. Like Vargas Jr. actually, I don't think him taking the loss really hurt his stock. I mean, obviously, I would have helped his stock a lot, but I don't think him taking the loss hurt his stock.
No, and especially on that stage, he was the co-main, so he would have had a hell of a lot of people tuning in because you don't know when the next fight's going to start. Unfortunately, is the fight going to go 1 round, 2 rounds, 12 rounds? So you tune in early just to make sure you don't miss the beginning of the fight. So he would have had millions and millions of people watching him. And that was his chance to really, stamp his name on it and really either, stop him standing or, try to stop him, knock him out or at least go for it, where he kind of played it safe, I think. Obviously no one wants to lose, but at the same time, you need to do something so people want to tune in to see you.
Do you think that for Zuffa Boxing or Dana White's, upcoming promotion or whatever it is, that TKO Boxing, do you think that they're just going to use the power of their marketing reach across UFC media, WWE media, all that, like the reach that they have, and just promote their fighters? Or do you think they're going to, in addition to that, do you think they're also going to have what I would call like an anchor fighter who has a prominent name, maybe like a Terence Crawford, who's kind of associated with them, and they're like, hey, fight on our cards so we can get that audience to come in who wants to watch your stuff, and then we're also going to showcase it happens all the time, right? They put big stars at the top main events, but you also want to put guys under them. Like we talked about Mark Castro being on the Canelo fights when he was with Eddie Hearn. Do you see Zuffa Boxing having that anchor fighter with the high profile, or do you see them just having these prospects or these B and C level guys and just using the power of their marketing reach?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think having that, kind of throwing some money at a big name to be like, okay, TKO Boxing or Zuffa Boxing, whatever they're going to call themselves, they're making a mark. It's like, I don't know, when someone buys a baseball team, a soccer team, and they buy that marquee signing, like, oh, okay, this guy means business. Dana White's coming there, puts his money behind one guy, even if he's losing money. But like you said, that guy is getting him views. So yeah, I think he needs to do that, and I think he will use the UFC and stuff like that to promote, Zuffa Boxing, because if he's allowed to, because I know that he does that with Power Slap. Because if you go in, I watch a lot of UFC, and then when he does the interviews at the end, and he's always drinking out of a cup, and it always says Power Slap on it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, he's kind of advertising that other brand, which is his, whilst he's doing the UFC stuff. So, and then he goes on, he's clever. He goes on all of the podcasts and stuff like that. And I'm sure he'll have all those guys ringside. They'll be doing stuff for him, the Nelk boys and whoever else he has over there all the time. So, yeah, he's a marketing genius. He knows what he's doing. But like you said, it's still, the product needs to be good. So it's going to be interesting to see what names that he's going to get, because I think from the interview that I saw, I think it's March next year. They're going to do anywhere between 12 to 16 shows, so one a month, and I think starting from March.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Where do you think this new Zuffa Boxing ends up in terms of television distribution, because Mark Shapiro, who's the president of TKO, was at a recent technology conference, I think about 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago or so, and said that an announcement was upcoming in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And I think he was kind of indicating that some television distribution was going to be announced. And he also said during that conference that there's going to be about 12 to 16 fights per year. And they're selling their media rights to the 12 to those 16 fights right now. And then he said that they were going to monetize that across the board in partnership with Saudi Arabia, who's obviously involved with their stuff. Where do you think they end up? Or do you think that it's going to be like per fight basis, like, okay, who wants this fight? Or we'll sell you this fight for this date. And they're just going to have a presence across different television partners.
See, the UFC already has that new deal with Paramount, right? So maybe he uses his connections to get them on there. But at the same time, he has a very close relationship with the Saudis, who own, was it like 13% of DAZN?
Yeah.
So does he use that partnership with Saudi, because Saudis are like, well, hey, we're using you to promote our big fights, like Canelo Crawford. So we may as well have you do it on DAZN, have your own boxing league on DAZN, because we're kind of helping you out with that. So he's got so many fingers and so many pies. Like, it's hard to really judge, like an educated guess, if you'd call it, where he's going to end up. But I think those must be close, right? Like, you don't want to stretch it out and have contracts all over. So I would have said Paramount maybe, because that's where the UFC is, or his connections with the Saudi and them owning a small stake in DAZN. He may end up on DAZN with all the other boxing stuff, you know? Everything's on there now.
I mean, just look at sports. Like, for example, the NFL over here in the United States, like the season just started within the last few weeks, but throughout a typical week, games are found, like the NFL has agreements with like multiple different television partners, whether it's Amazon Prime, whether it's, I think Netflix has like a Christmas game or something like that, like NBC, CBS, like, you know, they sold different games. And then Major League Baseball, same thing. They had like Apple TV bought some certain games throughout the season. Fox, ESPN, obviously. And then there's like the regional television partners, obviously. And the MLB, Major League Baseball playoffs, are about to start in the next week or so. And those games are going to be on ESPN, Fox, and, TBS and all that. I mean, I think that's just the nature of athletic sports now, is that a lot of these games aren't going to be, unless there's like Paramount's just going to throw money at you, like, hey, we're going to throw all this amount of money at you and we want to keep you guys for this amount of time exclusively. But when you're as big as the NFL or Major League Baseball or whatever, you're going to be like, man, I can make more money just by selling individual games or individual, sections of my sport to different partners. Do you think that's what happens here? Zuffa Boxing?
I don't think they're big enough yet to do that.
But they do have some type of authority in Hollywood and entertainment. Like, they can leverage that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Dana White probably going in there with like, hey, if you want favors from the UFC, then you need to do as a little something for the TKO boxing or Zuffa boxing, whatever they're going to call it. So, I mean, he very well may do, but I think they've got to start off kind of slightly smaller and kind of like find their way before they do anything. But I'm sure there'll be some type of package. Like, if he does do what we think, like, is he going to do fight events? But at the same time, there's going to be some sort of reality TV thing, because I think I'm right in saying that when he started Power Slap, he did like some sort of reality thing with them as well.
Oh, I think he did. I think you might be
Yeah,
right
I think
on
it
that.
was only like a few episodes, but he did like a house type thing to set the scene so we could all find out who's who. So it's kind of, could you call it a proven thing that he does of like, starts something off and does a reality TV? Because I don't know how popular Power Slap is, but he seems to say it's more popular than like the NFL and comes out with all these like wacky stats that he has.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, obviously, we should find out something in the next couple of weeks on the next plans for Zuffa Boxing. I wanted to get your reaction on. There was a recent report out in the last couple of days or so that the Saudis had offered $10 million to Dave Portnoy, who's the founder and president of Barstool Sports, to attend a fight, I believe, in Saudi Arabia. I think the report said that an employee of Barstool or somebody affiliated with Barstool kind of revealed that during like an interview or like a podcast or something. I forgot the intricate details about it, but it was somebody associated with Barstool that said, "Oh yeah, they offered Dave Portnoy $10 million just to go to attend a fight." I mean, are we surprised? I mean, they have the money, and they had guys like Cristiano Ronaldo there. They had it's like, well, I'm pretty sure you're paid, but that just kind of gives some indication of confirmation, right? It says like, well, we kind of knew you were paying people to go and attend your fights.
If Dave Portnoy's worth $10 million, then what are your Ronaldo?
Yeah,
Messi,
what did you pay Ronaldo?
Mike Tyson, and all those guys getting paid? Like, hey, to have enough money to be able to turn down $10 million, just be ringside to watch a boxing event and have your morals not be buyable, good for him. Like,
yeah,
fucking, I could not afford to turn down $10 million to go ringside to watch that.
That's life changing. Yeah,
life changing. Even to Dave Portnoy, like, how much is he worth that he can turn down that?
Well, you know
he
what?
sold Barstool for a lot.
Well, I think he's worth quite a bit. But you know why I know he's obviously doing okay is because there was a video I saw once a couple of years back, and I'm sure it's on YouTube or somewhere, where he's buying something like at a CVS or some drugstore or something like that, and he's using it like, I think it's an American Express card, and it says as he's paying on the terminal, it says, "Oh, do you want to use your cash bag points or your points or something like that for cash?" And whoever's with him is filming, and he's like, "Oh, look at what my cash back points are," and it's like he has like 50 million. Like it's a ridiculous number, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I never use them." And then he was like, "Oh," he's like, I always just click next and I just pay it with the credit." And then he was like, "Yeah, if I cash it out, it's like worth $20 million." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's nuts!" Like, I'll send you the video. I'll find it this week and I'll send it to you. But I remember like he showed it like on the terminal on the POS system, the point of sale terminal, when he slid his card. They zoomed in on it, and he was like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I never use it." He's like, "I just click next." But he could use it as cash, and he never does. Dude. So he's obviously doing okay. Yeah,
oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Wanted to give a quick rundown here of what kind of give me your quick take as we'll do a solid hour here. We're getting to an hour here. We got some upcoming fights on the schedule in the end of September, and then in October. So we got Joseph Parker, Fabio Wardley. What do you think about that fight?
Crazy to think that Fabio Wardley's got to that position from being a white collar fighter, like semi-professional, I guess, if you call that. Like, you don't really have white collar over here in the US, but to say that he's got that far, I think Joseph Parker will be a step too far for him, because if you remember in the last fight where he fought Justice Honey, right? He was getting outboxed, and then Honey just got caught, and Fabio Wardley just had that power, stopped him. I think he'd lost nearly every single round.
Yeah. I think it's going to be an interesting fight, though. Parker's really kind of revived his career in the last couple of years.
Well, yeah, because you think not long back he lost to Joe Joyce.
Yeah.
And Joe Joyce is now nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The juggernaut.
Yeah.
What about we got upcoming Sebastian Fundora versus your favorite of mine, Keith One-Time Thurman for the WBC Super Welterweight title.
Waste of time. We're being honest, right? Like, Fundora should destroy him. Like, it's just, yeah.
Thurman's still there, man. Thurman's still there. I remember when I think him and Sean Porter fought in 2015, like on CBS or something. And that was a fun fight. And I always thought Thurman, I was like, hey, Thurman can fight. He really puts it out there. And then he just kind of slowed down. He got injured. And
those injuries, man, like he was the best at 147.
Yeah, he was the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's still around 10 years later. Keith One-Time Thurman is still here. Also upcoming, Oshaki Foster versus Stephen Fulton for the WBC Super Featherweight Championship.
Good fight.
I like this fight. This is a fun fight. This is a fun fight. Who do you?
Stephen Fulton, just on his day when everything's going and everything's in rhythm, he's really good to watch.
Yeah.
I think I'd go with Fulton just. That's a tricky one, though. That's a good fight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. And then also Jesus Ramos Jr. versus Shane Mosley Jr. Battle of the Juniors here. WBC interim middleweight. What do you think?
I like watching Ramos. He's powerful. Just kind of goes for it. You know, he's a good fighter to watch. Mosley's just had that little run, didn't he, where he was just kind of took off and put a few wins together, and now look at him. I think Ramos. Ramos takes that. I think he stops him.
Yeah, I think Ramos takes that fight. And then at the beginning of November from Fort Worth, Texas, Virgil Ortiz Jr. versus Erickson Lubin for the WBC interim super welterweight title. What do you think about this fight?
Ortiz should take that. I think he's just going to be too powerful for Lubin. Lubin's skillful, but gets caught. That's his problem. He's too hittable. So I think Ortiz probably by a stoppage.
I hope it's a fun fight.
Lubin has the style to do it. He just has to be on it. He has to be, very evasive, for quite a period of time. He's got to be on his bike, and he's going to be able to do that for the whole 12 rounds, because I don't see Lubin stopping him. It would have to be Lubin on points.
And then mid-November from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Connor Ben. The rematch. What do you think about this matchup? The rematch, I guess.
It's a big fight for the fans in the UK. Obviously, there's a lot of bad blood between the two, from before the first fight and then the first fight. So I don't see it going any other way. I just think Eubank is just too big, too strong, too fit, and Conor Ben is unfortunately very one-dimensional. So I think it's probably going to go the same way. I think Eubank wins either by stoppage or takes him the full 12 rounds and probably wins like 8 or 9 of them.
If Eubank wins, does he fight Canelo next?
I think so. I think that's probably what he's trying to do, right? Because the rumor was that who was it when Canelo was going to fight Skull, Eubank was in talks. Whether that was just to kind of scare William Skull into signing the contract, we don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
But I could see that if he wants to go over to the UK to have that stadium fight, like just to see what it's like and see what the atmosphere is like. Like I'm sure some boxers all hear about it and they're like, man, like I really want to go over there because the fans sound crazy.
Yeah.
So there's just to experience it, because what he's done everything he can do in the US, right? He's done these big fights. He's been over to Saudi, like fight in Mexico. So like he's only got a few things left to tick off, I think.
Yeah. No, yeah. I could totally see that. Yeah. Well, Mike, welcome back to another episode here. You're welcome back anytime. I'm still trying to keep us afloat over here. I know we apologize to our listeners that we're not giving you as many consistent episodes, but we're still trying to give you some episodes. I'm trying to focus more on interviews in the meantime. But we hope you guys enjoyed this one as we give you a traditional, analysis, news, previews, reviews type of episode here at the last round. But before we sign off once again, Mike, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
At the last round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And thanks for having me, Danny.
You'll be back. But for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is the last round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round